tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever.
Till I get my heads up. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Rumble. It's time to rumble. Remember, resist much, obey little. Amy Tan said that, one of the books that I recently read. Do you like that quote? Resist much, obey little. I don't even know what I want to obey. As well as fed, and will you push that mic just a little bit further from you? I'm not going to, this says scam, and then this is what I usually do as my note. I'm on my way. So I'm on my way. As well as bed built.
What's that movie called?
Rear Window. That's what I watched a couple nights because Jimmy kept falling asleep. But I love Rear Window. It's an old Alfred Hitchcock film with Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly.
I'll put it in.
Is beautiful.
That's who that is, Grace Kelly?
Yes.
Oh.
She's 25 in the film. He's 46. And she finds him irresistible.
That's the whole thing.
That's the whole challenge of the film.
It was like the mic, when the microphone comes in the shot.
Jimmy.
It was like Jimmy Stewart tried when he looked. First of all, he was 46 in the movie. He looked at least 56. He looked older than me, and so for him to be the heartthrob for that girl, for Grace Kelly, that's who that was.
Yes, for Grace Kelly.
I just couldn't suspend my disbelief. It just. And then for her to be sitting in his lap and him to be interested in something outside his window. No way. It really was hard to suspend your disbelief on that.
But what a beautiful cinematic.
Well, even no matter how beautiful they filmed it, which it was filmed beautifully, it's still just come on, Jimmy Stewart, come on.
What?
Okay, Kurt's here.
Okay. So you want me to read anything? Or
No,
back to back to Jimmy. We're gonna do it live.
Okay, we have
Hi, Juliet.
we have special guests special guest with us. Everybody, very excited. Dr. Juliet Engel is a Washington D.C. based physician and author known for her work in combating human trafficking and improving maternal health care in Russia, where she founded the Angel Coalition to rescue and support victims. She has written several books detailing her experiences and the challenges faced in her humanitarian efforts. She has also spoken about being involved as a child with the CIA's Monarch program, a sub-program of MK Ultra. She now leads Our Country, Our Children in America. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Juliet Engel. Hi, doctor. How are you?
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Kurt. Glad to be here.
So I wanted to, you sent me this. This was released last December 23rd.
Yes.
And it's from the National Security Archive. It says 40 years of freedom of information action. And it's all about the CIA's behavior control experiments and the focus of new scholarly collection. And so they're releasing all the stuff that they were doing with their Monarch program, the MK Ultra, and there was another one, Blue something.
Wait, Monarch is in that? What? Okay.
Okay, I don't know what any of this is. So, Julia, tell me what you... Go ahead, take it wherever you want.
Sure. I'm 76 years old. I was 6 years old in 1955 when my father sold me into the MK Ultra program. My whole family were CIA, NSA agents. My uncle's one of the founders of the NSA. I could go into that, but anyway, I was one of the first of the bloodline kids who was sold into this program, and I was in it for 11 years. It involved physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, satanic rituals, and an entire program of building a structure in your mind that could be externally controlled. It also included remote viewing, and I was in the division of the program. It was the Monarch program. And as a pretty little girl, I was put in the sex magic program. And that was more about sexual abuse than sex magic, but it was also about teaching us to project sexual energy into other people and then use that to control them. So anyway, it was a terrible experience. The core of the program, every session would start with being tied to a spinning wheel and hearing the chant. And this is really, really important to what's happening in our country right now, because they would chant over and over, there is no day, there is no night, there is no light, there is no dark, there is no man, there is no woman, there is no adult, there is no child, there is no up, there's no down, on and on and on, going faster and faster and faster until they would reach a climax when you were just absolutely ready to die. And at that point, as the person tied on the wheel, I was supposed to give up my soul in a flash of green, and they would say, there is only green. And I think most people did, because if you gave up your soul, then you were rewarded from that moment on. You were the singer that couldn't sing but gets the $1 million contract, the writer that can't write but sells all the books. You eventually worked your way into, I believe, the things, unaccountable agencies like the Senior Executive Service. And so that was 70 years ago. And trying to tell people about this for all this time, like many others like me, trying to explain what was happening to people, the enormous pressure was, you're crazy, this didn't happen, the government wouldn't do this, you're talking about the CIA, for God's sake. And it really wasn't until December 23rd of 2024, what's that, 6 months ago?
Yeah.
That actually they released this. And this is a complete confession of what they did, who they did, how they did it, and talks about why they were doing the program, how it was started in conjunction with the Eli Lilly drug company in Switzerland, who donated tons of LSD to the CIA and also helped them develop other drugs, which made people, there's a list of 17 points, and they're in here, but one of them is to make people irrational, to make people lose the ability to think logically, all the things that you're seeing today, because you would look at this and say, okay, that was 70 years ago. Who cares about all these old people? Well, these old people are running the world right now. And it's a mess. And I wanted to bring this out and bring it to you because I know you care about this. And this gives us the platform to start talking about what's happened to people's minds, why all this craziness is going on, why judges can't tell men from women. It's all right out of the program from the 50s and 60s. And it gives the photographs of who founded it, what they did. I remember this man.
So tell me, this is the CIA staff photo of Sidney Gottlieb, who oversaw Project Artichoke and later the MK Ultra behavior control program. So they would use all kinds of stuff, like what you said, you just described with the spinning wheel, but they would also use they had Eli Lilly producing LSD for them in huge quantities, right? And they would dose people with LSD against their knowledge, without their knowledge. And so some of the doctors pushed back but most of them were all on board for it. It was like, right out of the Nazi concentration camp type stuff. And so that's who was the guy you held up? What was that picture? Who was that guy?
This is George Hunter White, and he was sort of a master handler of mine personally. So I was exposed to him constantly for about 11 years. And every annex, every place the CIA, and when he was in charge of setting up, they called them the safe houses. So all the program sites were set up in hospitals, universities, institutes, private clinics, religious retreats. They would just rent a building. So often the people didn't even know they were there. They paid a ton of money and they did what they wanted to do. So
here's one. The Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, Canada was the site of MK Ultra experiments in the 50s and 60s.
Didn't Kamala go there? That's what they say.
Well, probably. I mean, you take the people that make no sense and are moved to the top. How did she get to be a presidential candidate with not one vote? winning a single election.
Like Ford did, the way Ford did, because he's part of that program as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Ford was not his real name.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was in GATE, by the way. Did you ever do my friend Emma's podcast? Is that why you look familiar, Emma?
Oh, yes.
So I probably know you from that. Yeah. And
yes.
So I forgot about this until I started seeing these because I was looking for UFO stuff. That's how I found all this.
So,
well, communicating with UFOs was part of what they were having.
Yeah. We have shows.
What?
Oh, wow.
Tell me about that.
Well, when I was about 7, I was living in California, and I would be taken to a beach south of Tijuana called Rosarita Beach. And down there is the Autonomous University of Mexico. And a group of kids, we'd be naked for weeks, running around like savages. And every night there would be some kind of ritual going on led by this senator. And sometimes the governor of California was down there as well. And the goal was to sacrifice. So they sacrificed kids from the orphanages. I understand they didn't sacrifice me because I was a bloodline child. I was part of the family. And we'd stand on the beach at night and start seeing UFOs approaching us. And, and everybody was on drugs. And it wasn't just LSD. They developed all kinds of drugs to affect people's minds. But there was communication. It felt that way. Was that true? I was a naked, half-starved 7-year-old child. My hair got so filthy and full of sand, they had to shave it off. But that's what they were doing. And it was all about moving the energetic body. And they had a real copy of Mein Kampf.
Yeah.
And that's something you cannot get in this country. Even in Germany, you can't get it in German or English.
Mm-hmm.
And the person that translated it in the 1930s from German to English was Alan McGregor Cranston, who later became a U.S. Senator.
Oh, yes. Alan Cranston.
And he was the one that took us kids down to Mexico and would have us do these rituals. And he was using the real Mein Kampf. He had it.
And so this just came out December 23rd, 2024.
I didn't know that at all. I've been yapping about this. I was on Rogan yapping about this.
And how come so how come it comes out on the Jimmy Dore show? How come it hasn't come out on a bigger show? I don't understand. Has this come out on any other show? Kurt, have you heard of it?
Maybe it was on Emma's show and I didn't see an episode, but it's the first time hearing about it.
I did it on Emma's show and I've done it on other shows and other networks, but no, this it's the worst possible time to bring it out.
So we showed. I think Colonel McGregor tweeted out something, right?
About what's happened under Disney.
Yeah,
that was me.
Okay, so we showed that on our show, and YouTube demonetized that video.
Oh yeah,
they wouldn't let us.
Surprised.
Yeah. So let me just read a little bit from this. This is the newly released December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas last year. Just let me read you a little bit of it to give you a flavor of what she's talking about. It says, today the National Security Archive and ProQuest celebrate the publication of a new scholarly document collection many years in the making on the shocking secret history of the CIA's mind control research programs. The new collection, CIA and the Behavioral Sciences, Mind Control, Drug Experiments, and MKUltra, brings together more than 1,200 essential records on one of the most infamous and abusive programs in CIA history. Under the code names that included MKUltra, Bluebird, and Artichoke, the CIA conducted terrifying experiments using drugs, hypnosis, isolation, sensory deprivation, and other extreme techniques on human subjects, often U.S. citizens who frequently had no idea what was being done to them or that they were part of a CIA test. Today's announcement comes 50 years after the New York Times investigation by Seymour Hersh touched off probes that would bring MKUltra abuses to light. The new collection also comes 70 years since U.S. pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly and Company first developed a process to streamline the manufacture of LSD in late 1954, becoming the CIA's chief supplier of the new discovered psychoactive chemical, central to many of the agency's behavioral control efforts. Highlights of the new MKUltra collection include a DCI-approved plan in 1950 for the establishment of interrogation teams that would utilize the polygraph, drugs, and hypnotism to obtain the greatest results in interrogation techniques. In 1951 memo that captures the meeting between CIA and foreign intelligence officials about mind control research and their shared interest in the concept of individual mind control. A 1952 entry from the daily calendar of George White, a federal narcotics agent who ran a safe house where the CIA tested drugs like LSD and performed other experiments on unwitting Americans. A 1952 report on the successful use of artichoke interrogation methods that combine the use of narcosis and hypnosis to induce regression and later amnesia on Russian agents suspected of being doubled. Now, if you talk to Sirhan, he doesn't remember anything about shooting RFK, right? Am I right? Correct me in the chat if I'm wrong about that. The 1960s, so that sounds like that. They learned how to give people amnesia.
This is just the tip of the iceberg because it says monarch in here, though.
So
yes, it does.
A 1956 memo in which MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb signs off a project that would evaluate the effects of large doses of LSD-25 in normal human volunteers on federal prisoners in Atlanta. A 1963 report from the CIA's Inspector General, which led CIA leadership to re-examine the use of unwitting Americans in their covert drug testing program, and the 1983 deposition of MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb in a civil case brought by Velma Vel Orlikow, a victim of CIA-sponsored projects conducted by Dr. Ewan Cameron and Allen at the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, which is what I just showed you. The challenges facing this documentation project were considerable as CIA Director Richard Helms and longtime MK Ultra chief Sidney Gottlieb destroyed most of the original project records in 1973. It's a story about secrecy, perhaps the most infamous cover-up in the CIA agency's history. It is also a history marked by near total impunity at the institutional and individual levels for countless abuses committed across decades, kind of like Dr. Fauci is today. Not during interrogations of enemy agents or in wartime situations, but during ordinary medical treatments inside prison hospitals, addiction clinics, and juvenile detention facilities, and in many cases led by top figures in the field of the behavioral scientists. Despite the agency's efforts to erase this hidden history, the documents that survived this purge and that have been gathered together here present a compelling and unsettling narrative of the CIA's decades-long effort to discover and test ways to erase and reprogram the human mind.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
like the Dalai Lama, a little kid they take and they repattern him and think he's a guy that's 1,000 years old. You know how they do? The CIA loves the Dalai Lama, and so did Hitler.
So
yeah, the artichoke is because that's what the inside of your mind looks like. All the leaves of an artichoke, you're all separated. Okay. That's where that comes from.
So they say. Let me ask you. They say that they stopped this MK Ultra stuff in 1973. Now, why would I believe that they did that? Do you believe that they did that?
Oh no, not at all. It's gotten increasingly sophisticated. And there's a note from one of them to another of them calling a meeting saying we've got to stop abusing Americans. You know, some of them are gonna survive and they're gonna sue us, and they couldn't have that. So the solution about that time was not to stop, but to start importing foreign children, and that's when the foreign children started pouring across the borders, and they decided that it would be all right as long as they were all called Mexicans. And that's exactly what happened in the last few years. 300,000 children, and they're like, oh, it's all right. They're all Mexicans.
And they're lost, right? They can't find them.
Children. Yeah, they can't find them, and they don't feel that they should have to look for them because they're Mexicans. You know?
Yeah.
And that comes from the MK Ultra decision in the 60s to bring them into the country and to call them Mexicans.
Well, how about sanctuary cities were invented by Reagan and them? He was deep in that. So some sanctuary, did you ever get to meet Dr. Green, who is Joseph Mengele that we brought over?
Yes, I did. There was always a Dr. Green. There was, in every annex, there was a Dr. Green, a Dr. White. We were taken care of by nanny blacks. The nanny blacks were men dressed up like nuns. They were obviously gay. I mean, but yes, I met the top Dr. Green, and that must have been Mengele. They all had accents. The Dr. Greens all had accents.
So can I ask you a question, though, real quick? I was in GATE, which is Gifted and Talented Education, which you might have heard of. So I don't remember any of it. I have no idea what we did in that. I remember a pink drink, and that's all I got. Do you have any idea what that is?
It's probably some version of this. I mean, I was in it for weeks at a time. Many people are not. They're in it for a course or a test, or they're testing something, or they're trying something out. But I mean, the trauma is there. So I also wanted to say to the people that are going to see this that when you do start to remember, because the way you've been programmed is that you can't remember it. They developed a whole cadre of drugs and techniques for erasing memories. And when I was 30 years old and started to remember, I could remember nothing. Couldn't remember my mother, my father, my family, nothing. But the thing is, when you do start to remember, they very cleverly programmed you with a suicide program. So as soon as
Omega, yeah.
Yeah, or the Freedom Train, or it's got several variations. And that comes at you so hard and so fast that people are starting to commit suicide before they even know what's going on. So therapists are coming in and we're doing sessions to say, okay, people have to take control of this coming at them. And I tell them to bring it like a thread through an eye of a needle. Don't let the whole mass come at you, or you're going to be in Omega or on the Freedom Train.
I mean, this document you sent me is mind-blowing. I read it, and let me just read a little bit more. I hope that I'm not being rude by reading this while you're here, but it says, while many of the MKUltra projects were conducted in hospitals, laboratories, or other institutional settings, like universities, others were carried out in clandestine CIA safe houses staffed not by doctors or clinicians, but by hard-nosed federal narcotic agents like George Hunter White, that's that guy right there.
Yes.
Under the direction of Gottlieb, White adopted the persona of a Bohemian artist named Morgan Hall to lure unsuspecting victims to his pad, where he and his CIA collaborators secretly experimented on them and recorded their behavior. An OSS veteran who had worked on truth drug development for the Army in World War II, White surreptitiously dosed many of his victims with LSD, a drug that the CIA had in abundance thanks to Eli Lilly, which had developed the capacity to produce the drug in tonnage quantities and had agreed to become the agency's supplier. Gottlieb, his deputy Robert Lashbrook, and CIA psychologist John Gittinger are among the CIA officials who frequently visited White's safe houses. Did any of these people go to prison for this?
No, they went on to lead us.
That's right. They're running the country now.
Yeah.
And I was there in a lot of these parties as a child because they used the children to pass out the LSD and to get these guys naked and photographed and compromised. So that's what they were using kids like me for at that time.
And so do you mind if I ask you, like, what was your father sold you into this? So he got paid from the CIA to give you over to this group of people doing this stuff?
Yes.
And so was he just like evil, or was he also mind controlled?
I don't know. I was with my family half of the time and in the program the other half of the time. So I was supposed to learn how to be a normal human being half the time and then become some kind of artichoke agent the other half of the time. And I am 100% sure that my mother was in the program, and her brother, who founded the CIA, became one of the top agents that started the CIA from Arlington Hall. he was definitely in the program.
And so when did you realize that this had happened to you? How old were you?
10 was the first time I ran away and tried telling people about what the NSA was doing, and discovered that no one in 1959 had ever heard of the NSA. Yeah, I got nowhere. And finally I just escaped at the age of 17, because if I didn't get away then and get off and escape and have my own life, then I was going to be forever a horror of the CIA. And I wanted out. So I got out and then promptly forgot everything. Couldn't remember anything.
Really?
Nothing. Nope.
I got a good memory, Jimmy, and I don't remember nothing about that. My memory is crazy, and I don't remember that at all. I mean, maybe I don't want to, honestly.
Well, you probably don't. It was probably horrible.
I don't know.
So at the center of all of it was Sidney Gottlieb, the head of the technical service staff of the CIA's chemical division and later director of the technical services division. He was the CIA's chief poison maker, according to Kinzer, whose book, Poisoner-in-Chief, Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA Search for Mind Control, that was released in 2019, is the definitive work on the mercurial chemist. From his position deep inside the CIA's secret corridors, Gottlieb led the agency's decades-long effort to find ways to use drugs, hypnosis, and other extreme methods to control human behavior, and, it was hoped, turn them into usable tools for intelligence agencies and policymakers. Yeah. So it makes me think about that guy who shot at Trump and Butler.
His parents were behavioral modification therapists. What does that tell you?
Yeah, so it makes me think of that. It makes me think of the guy who shot those two Israelis outside the museum, and it makes me think of that guy with the Molotov cocktails, so waiting around for the cops to come arrest him.
Yeah, the guy who shot the president of Slovakia.
The guy who shot the president of Slovakia.
I was told that this is proprietary technology. They used to call them bioprogrammed human robotoids, like Marilyn Monroe they did this to. Remember, she passed messages between Giancana and Kennedy?
Yeah.
Well, that's because she's a programmed sex slave. Yeah. That's why they look like that. That's why they got the leopard print and the blonde hair.
That's where I was going.
Rotten.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's totally rotten, and they're in control now. And there was and I was going to say that Gottlieb's boss was Alan Dulles and John Foster Dulles. It was the Dulles brothers, and they had connected with Eli Lilly because they were in Switzerland during the war, and later worked with Eli Lilly to develop Prozac. Talk about getting the population on a drug to make them think illogically and make Americans stupid.
You know, the first use that they tried to sell Prozac, I'm pretty sure, was as a weight loss drug, and then they figured out that it could have psychotropic effects, and that's much easier to get approved. So that's why they just switched it over to that. Did you ever hear about that, Juliet?
Yes, and it was the research was based on what they knew from LSD. So there's some similarities to LSD can relieve depression.
Yeah, and so it turns out Tom Cruise was right about Prozac and the SSR.
You think he's not in that program? He flew the missions to Iran in that movie 3 years ago. Tom Cruise Mapather III is from a bloodline family. And correct me if I'm wrong, Juliet, but the whole thing of being bloodline means you can dissociate easier than other people. Is that the whole key to it?
I think that if you, I didn't know this until I traced my ancestry back, but it does go to the Plantagenets and the Capets. Yeah. It goes to the Rurik, the first royal family of Russia. So there is definitely bloodlines. And that popped up when I turned in my DNA for Ancestry. I got a circle saying, if you're in this family, here's your ancestors. And so that's what that is. And they assumed that those people were on the top because they had special abilities. And very often it was assumed they could see into the stars, they could open gates, they could.
So this is real, right? I mean, this is way crazier than I could have imagined, right? So that,
much worse.
So what much worse. So what I say
it's
here,
worse than you can imagine.
So what
You
I say
can't
at this
believe it.
show is, if you can think it, the CIA has a plan for it.
You couldn't
Well,
think it.
I couldn't
It's
even
so
think
bad.
this stuff. And
I
they,
have a good
But we're
friend of
seeing-
mine. Yeah, a person that you all know who she has no memories before the age of 15.
Yeah.
Is that
I didn't
normal?
have-
I don't think it is.
and she's famous, right?
Oh, there's a bunch of them.
So
There's
Roseanne-
a bunch of them.
So I
Remember
want
There's a bunch
Roseanne?
of them.
I want to show you this. So this guy right here, Dr. Charles Geschichter, was a professor of pathology at Georgetown University and the head of the Geschichter Fund for Medical Research, a foundation through which the CIA funded a variety of drug and behavior control research and experiments under the MK Ultra and related programs. That's him. And this is the thing at that he got built at Georgetown. At the urging of Dr. Geschichter, the CIA provided $375,000 toward the construction of a new medical facility at Georgetown University Hospital. In return, Geschichter agreed to let the CIA use 1/6 of the new Gorman Annex as its hospital safe house and to provide human patients and volunteers for experimental use.
Yeah. I mean,
It's students.
How are there not movies made about? How are there not?
there are. There's a ton of movies. Blink Twice just came out, which is Lisa Bonet's daughter directed it, and they kind of tell you about it. I wrote to one of the writers on Instagram because I'm like, well, you know about Monarch? Because you can use shame as like a safe to keep secrets. You know, people don't want to talk about this stuff because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, that's a good way to hide your secrets. So they turn people into human iPhones. You could store stuff in them. You can send messages. You could jerk off on them. That was the first thing they made. And now the transhuman people, they're going to make us into iPhones. That's the plan.
Yeah, got the graphene in our veins through the all kinds of injections, and we're assembling batteries and
The list of drugs that they've figured out what can make you do what. Guess what they told Monarch people never to do? Smoke marijuana, because it somehow broke down. It broke like amnesiac barriers in some way. So think about why weed was illegal for some mysterious reason. This is a real big thing. And
That's
I was
funny.
told,
I've never smoked marijuana. I always wondered why. I guess
Oh,
I was told not to.
no, it'll screw with it. So the Mormons, everybody goes, Israel, and they do it. But the Mormons, a lot of feds are Mormons. And look into the Mormons, what they do with it. Or Scientology, a CIA cutout. Where do you think they programmed Tom Cruise to do what he does?
so what? So okay, but let me just read this other part. Many other MK Ultra sub projects were established through grants from false foundations funded by the CIA. One of these, the Geschichter Fund for Medical Research, run by Dr. Charles Geschichter, a professor of pathology, blah, blah, blah. It steered millions of CIA dollars into research programs at Georgetown and other institutions. As part of the agreement, the CIA gained access to a medical safe house at the newly constructed Gorman Annex of Georgetown University Hospital, along with a ready supply of patients and students to use as subjects for MK Ultra experiments. Another prominent MK Ultra cutout foundation, the Human Ecology Society, was run by Cornell Medical Center neurologist Dr. Harold Wolf, who wrote an early study of communist brainwashing techniques for Alan Dulles, and later partnered with the CIA to develop a combination of drugs and sensory deprivation that could be used to erase the human mind. Among the most extreme MK Ultra projects funded through the Wolf's Group were the infamous depatterning experiments conducted by Dr. D. Ewan Cameron at the Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric hospital at McGill University in Montreal. Cameron's methods combined induced sleep, electroshocks, and psychic driving, under which drugged subjects were psychologically tortured for weeks or months in an effort to reprogram their minds. These records also shed a light on an especially dark period in the history of the behavioral sciences, in which some of the top physicians in the field conducted research and experiments usually associated with the Nazi doctors who were tried at Nuremberg. While some medical professionals engaged by the CIA apparently struggled with the ethical issues raised by conducting harmful tests on unwitting human subjects, others were eager to participate in a program in which, according to one 1953 memo, said, no area of the human mind is to be left unexplored, just as CIA psychologists later oversaw the torture of prisoners at Guantanamo Bay and at CIA black sites during the first decades of the 21st century. Many of the doctors and clinicians recruited for MKUltra work were leaders in the field whose participation boosted the prestige of the program and drew others into it. Scholars and researchers looking at the involvement of psychologists and other medical professionals in the horrific U.S. detention and interrogation programs must have been exposed in recent years, will find parallels and historical antecedents throughout this collection. Wow.
They big pharma'd Harry Potter bullshit. Well, let me put it real simply.
Yeah.
They took a cult, because this is a lot older than MKUltra, okay? We just have the Nazi version from all the Nazis we brought over here. But this goes back to Egypt. That's what all that pharaoh nonsense is. Those corrupt priests would inbreed royals. That's why Akhenaten looks like that, because he's inbred as shit. So they would inbreed them for suggestibility. They'd tie up their day with bullshit about the afterlife. And this is the big secret they got, probably the Templars and all that, how to control the crowd. And it works. And it works really well, because they're doing the same shit they did 20 years ago. And if you're not brainwashed, you should notice it. But do you see how people don't?
Well,
go ahead,
Juliet.
You've got, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So you have basically inbred idiots leading agencies and this kind of thing. And I can tell you that's my family, very, very inbred. Exactly what you said. But the program that was put in 60, 70 years ago has really worn out. You know, it doesn't work anymore. The tasks that we were trained to do don't apply anymore. So it's sort of out of control.
Yep. They're popping off.
Like what?
They're popping off.
Yeah.
So what do you like? What were some of the tasks that you were trained to do that don't work anymore?
Oh, well, I was trained as a Soviet agent. I was absolutely programmed to go to a specific place when I was 12, 13, 14, to go to a specific place in Moscow from Red Square to find my way into a basement of this old Soviet building, and then into that basement, into the next building, which was called Rostelecom, to where all the Soviet international communications were, and to sabotage it. Well, I did go to Russia. This was after I'd left the program. I'd been out of the program for 15 years. I was invited to go to Russia. I went. I didn't remember my childhood, but when I got to Russia, it was all familiar. And within 2 weeks, I was in the building, in the basement, into Rostelecom, asking around, what, can I see the basement? And they took me to the basement. There was nothing there because it had all left 20 years ago. So there I was, programmed, trained, got there, did the mission 30 years too late.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening. And wound up doing something completely different with my training.
Yeah. Well, it turns out the programming isn't as much like a lot of our other weapons programs. It's not as fail-safe as they claim. And so now they got to clean it up. And so think all this UFO shit out there now of fake disclosure. It's amazing because since I started working on Jimmy's show and having to really look at current events, all of a sudden I got obsessed with this. And if you look at the reason for picking out people for Monarch, there's a list of things. And one of them is the ability to synthesize seemingly unrelated events, which is how I write jokes. So all of a sudden, there's all these dots that connect, and I've been obsessed about it. But I forgot I was in that. I forgot I was in Gate. It was called, sometimes it's called Gateway. We moved a lot. Sometimes it's called Gateway. Sometimes it's called Gifted and Talented Education. I was in it. My sister was in it. My brother, who's a lunatic now, was in it. I don't remember. And I asked all my friends who were in it what they did. Their stories are batshit. Zach Amico, who writes roast jokes, they had some thing on his head like in the beginning of Ghostbusters where they're doing the, okay? My friend Brooke, they took all the kids to a dark room with a big hot air balloon basket, and they had to get in the basket, and then they had this big screen and they played like they're flying over Italy. I didn't even know what the hell to make of that. Probably remote viewing now that I think about it.
Remote viewing, yes, getting trained to actually do that.
Yeah, they got to break it to everybody. This stuff's real because they've been screwing around with it and it's leaking. It turns out it's real leaky.
It's leaky, and people who start to remember it are at risk of committing suicide. And that's the important reason for like me to come out and others who like
I almost did.
That.
I almost did do that. Barry Crimmins saved me.
There you go. There's the program. And I've had 3 people contact me this week that said they were rescued by neighbors or friends, and they don't even know why they were. But all of them were starting to remember, and that has to be controlled.
And so, Juliet, why do you think so? How did they get around ever holding anybody accountable for this?
Well, the president and the Senate and the senior executive service, senior executive service is full of these people, and they sit between the top, the executive service, the president and all the secretary of state, all those. Next level down is senior executive service, which is unaccountable, unelected officials that really have more power than any senator, any staff, any, and you can go on their website, on the Senior Executive Service website, and they brag about that they have absolute control over 75 American federal agencies. These are people that you can't fire, you can't hire, you can't, when they retire, they get huge bonuses. They're not qualified for the jobs. They're just there to impose the program.
Yeah, but, the men in suits that Putin talked about with the black suits and the blue ties, that's who it is. And this all sounds crazy, but then you realize it explains all this bewildering behavior of 180, because all your leaders went through it. And I heard Trump went through CIA is bad, but Jesuit programming? They made a little alliance back in the day when Dulles' son, I guess, became a priest or something. That's the New World Order of the Rose. That's the full name of the program.
Yeah, I was in the Rosicrucian.
I was going to ask if you were Rosicrucian, because that's the genetic bottleneck for recruiting, right? Where they make sure only certain people get scioned into the bloodline.
Yes, all my uncles, grandfather, everything were Rosicrucian.
Yeah.
And when I was a little kid, I was only allowed to have a Rosicrucian radio, which played Rosicrucian crap.
What? Tell me what Rosicrucian. What does that mean? What
above Freemasons? It's like Freemasons, but the ones above Freemasons. Freemasons is kind of like the chump level. You get recruited up. Then you could be in the Illuminati, and then you could go to Rosicrucians if you're good.
And so, just does this have anything to do with what's that thing that Alex up in San Francisco, Kurt, that I got invited to? What
Bohemian Grove?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they did quite a bit of programming. You know how Kanye's great? I don't know if he went there, but Britney did. You know, Britney Spears isn't doing too good.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stories about what they did to her at Bohemian Grove. These people are all telling their story now. They're all ratting out.
Yeah, she says it.
What? Tell me about that, Juliet.
I didn't know that.
Go ahead, Juliet.
I was just going to say that she's often given interviews about satanic ritual abuse, and that she's a slave, and that she can't get away, and she's controlled, and it's all absolutely true. I believe every word she says, and there's a number of people like that. They are. And if I'd stayed, if I hadn't escaped and run away 3 states away, I'd have been in that situation.
And so did you ever? So has anyone ever launched a lawsuit where we have discovery?
Yes.
So let me, Juliet, please tell me about it.
Well, they've just done it in Canada on the basis of these documents coming out, and there's another organization in the States, but I'm not going to mention their names because they're getting ready to do a lawsuit. I figure I'm too old for a lawsuit. I'll give them my information, but I've written a book about this called Sparky Surviving Sex Magic, about being a child in this world. And Kurt, if you want to start remembering, you might want to read my book.
I'm getting upset because I don't. I'm like, the more I'm thinking about it, the more upset I'm getting. And I do not, maybe nothing happened, but I don't remember.
You don't want to remember because it was terrible. And you just have to get a hold of it and not get on that suicide train.
Well, I've been off that for quite some time, but I remember the feeling, and it didn't feel like I was just afraid to do it. It felt like it's the only option I got.
Oh, it is. In your program to believe. I was going to get on the freedom train, and then all these awful visions and everything would go away.
If Barry hadn't called me, I'd be dead. Yeah, me too. Me too.
So, I mean, this is for someone like me. It's overwhelming, right? To hear you and Kurt talk about this stuff.
I've been blathering about it for a while to everybody I talk. When I meet CIA people at Rogan's club, you know, because he has them on, I blurt out Monarch right in their face because I want to see what they'll do. It's very interesting. I just want to see the reaction when I mention it. If they act like I'm crazy or they get real weird, and I get both reactions. These pricks are the most evil Nazis that ever lived. And it's not just the names in there. George H.W. Bush, W, you know how he's the nice one? I used to make a joke that I bet Dick Cheney used to hunt him naked through the woods. As a joke. I think that happened to him.
So, I mean, this document, so then if you can see it over my shoulder, it's right here. It says, here's document 1. And then there's like, I think 18 or 19 documents. And like this first one is U.S. Central Intelligence Agency Interrogation Research Section to Chief Security Branch establishing a security validation team. And this was from September 1949. And it says, after returning from an overseas trip, the CIA's Morris Allen summarizes his recommendations for the establishment of, quote, security validation teams in the United States and abroad that would combine the use of drugs, hypnosis, and the polygraph to perform a variety of intelligence functions, including the screening of agency personnel and informants, the interrogation of suspected enemy agents, the processing of any loyalty cases that might arise, and the possible use of operational hypnosis. The teams would also gather information about the interrogation techniques and special operational procedures being utilized by Russia and Russian dom. So now everything, like, you know, from Sirhan to Lee Harvey Oswald to
Andrew Jackson. Try Andrew Jackson.
What do you mean? What? No,
the first guy tried to. Somebody may have said this in some English channel. They go, why would you need to shoot a president? They're only there 48 years. That's a great point. Why would you? Well, you wouldn't unless you're a psychopath oligarch. Andrew Jackson, that far back, who didn't want a central bank in America, a guy tried to shoot him and he beat him up. And he always thought it was a conspiracy by Calhoun against him. When you look into who's been doing this is old technology. The Nazis just got something like a folk remedy, and then that's what Eli Lilly parted. They big farmed the oldest. That's what magic is. They hypnotize you with bullshit. That's magic, everyone. They figured out how to big pharma it, and they did it to America.
So, well,
magic is evil.
So, like, if I'm going to see David Blaine, and at the Wynn. Is that evil or is that just fun?
Don't take a drink from him.
No, I wouldn't take a drink, but seriously, that's just fun, right?
Yeah, well, I guess it's what the fruits of your labors produce is how you know if it's good or bad. Okay. So all these supposed good people that people like to run the government, what has been the fruits of their labor? Does it look like it's good? That's how you know.
So I'll just read this one last one. Document 2. Sheffield Edwards requested that the DCI Roscoe Hillenkotter approve plans for Project Bluebird, sending it directly to the DCI rather than through the normal approval process due to, quote, the extreme sensitivity of this project and its covert nature, end quote. The memo indicates broad agreement among CIA offices, quote, for the immediate establishment of interrogation teams for the operational support of OSD, the Office of Special Operations, OSO, and OPC, the Office of Policy Coordination Activities, referring to the groups responsible for managing covert operations. The teams would utilize the polygraph, drugs, and hypnotism to attain the greatest results in interrogation techniques, noting that there is considerable interest in the field of hypnotism across CIA offices. The idea of Bluebird would be to bring all such interests within the purview and control of a single project. The project envisions interrogation teams utilizing the cover of polygraph interrogation to determine the bona fides of high potential defectors and agents, and also for the collection of incidental intelligence from such projects. Each team would consist of a psychiatrist, a polygraph technician, and a hypnotist. An office would be established in Washington to serve as cover for training, experimentation, and indoctrination of psychiatrists in the use of drugs and hypnotism. When not deployed abroad, the doctors would be used for defensive training of covert personnel, study, and experimentation in the application of these techniques. Wow.
And Bluebird is where they brought in children. That's where I started, Project Bluebird. It was a division of Monarch. It was the youngest children.
I mean, it's
and
still...
they taught us to pass a polygraph and to lie and to and creating agents.
So I lied. Here's one more. This is from 1959. This is from the report of a special meeting held and that wherever it was held is deleted on June 1st, 1959. In the search for the Manchurian candidate, Mark cites this fascinating account of an informal get-together between representatives of the U.S., British, and Canadian intelligence services in which all matters related to the influence or control of the minds of individuals were discussed. The conversation among the Allied intelligence services ranged from the specific subject of means for extracting information to the broadest aspects of psychological warfare and propaganda. One foreign intelligence official at first seemed skeptical about the idea of individual mind control and was more interested in programs that would research the psychological factors causing the human mind to accept certain political beliefs and aimed at determining means for combating communism, selling democracy, and preventing the penetration of communism into trade unions. However, after lengthy discussions, he became quite enthusiastic about research into individual mind control, according to the meeting notes. All present agreed that there has been no conclusive evidence, either from reports on Soviet activities or in Western research, to indicate that new or revolutionary progress has been made in this field, but full investigation of the Soviet cases was essential, and basic research in the field is most important because of the importance of this matter in connection with Cold War operations. Even though no radical discoveries are made, even small gains in knowledge will justify the effort expended. Since the group had only discussed pure research and not the offensive use of mind control techniques, the author of the memo recommends that the United States strike a clear separation between the intelligence and the research aspects of the project when dealing with Allied intelligence. So, I mean, this goes on, and this was released in just last December, and nobody's talking about it. And, I mean, you would think... Have you been on... I saw someone was on Patrick Bet-David's show, the PBD. Juliet, are you familiar with that show? Have you been on there, or are you familiar with?
I haven't, but I'd be glad to do it. I don't know Patrick.
Oh, okay. I'm just shocked that I have never heard of this. This came out last December, and the extent of this information. And of course, this didn't end. And as you say, these people that went through these programs are now in charge of running stuff. They're the deep state. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, they're running the country. They are the deep state, and they are the executive level of government. They're the top of Hollywood. They're the top of the corporations. Our airplanes are falling apart because they hire these company directors who don't give a damn about flying or airplanes. They're just there occupying the slot.
Or the guy at the Federal Reserve that doesn't know why we have to borrow money that we print. Remember how bizarre it was?
Yeah.
Or the Supreme Court justice who doesn't know the difference between a man and a woman.
Oh, the one that prosecuted the guy from the Pizzagate shooting. I thought they let him off, but no, he did 4 years, and he was judged by Judge Ketanji Brown, who went on to the Supreme Court. Yeah.
No,
doesn't know what a woman
I know
is.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Stacy Plaskett from the Virgin Islands, home of paying Epstein. All these people. The whole thing they did a while ago. Print King Charles's creepy ass portrait where it looks like he's in front of hamburger meat.
Yeah.
And he's got a monarch butterfly on his shoulder.
Oh, wow. So I had a guy. Go ahead.
Jeffrey Epstein offered me a job in 1988.
Really? Tell me about that.
I was invited to a book party up in the islands off the coast of in Washington, in Puget Sound. And at the party, all these planes started flying in. It was a private house, a beautiful house. One of the planes came in with Mark and Jeffrey Epstein. And they started talking to me. And they were telling me that they'd come because they wanted me to work for them, that they were setting up a resort on an island in the Caribbean. And they were going to be bringing in heads of state from all over the world. And they wanted to be able to encode the medical data or the personal data or whatever they wanted to send out. They wanted to know if they could encode it in the medical data. And this was 1988. Yeah. And I had my own technology business. So I was perfectly capable of doing that. And, but they creeped me out. They said, we'll give you this house. They would have given me the house.
Wow.
And so they were recruiting you to work on Epstein Island. That's what it sounds like.
Yes,
right?
In retrospect, yeah. They hadn't started it yet, and the technology was just getting to the point where you could really hide data, but you could do it. I could have done it.
All right. Well, listen, we've got to move on. I'm really glad that you came on. I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around this, honestly.
I tell people all the time, but they think it's nuts. First of all, I'm blown away that this came out in 2024. I had no idea because I just remember a bunch of UFO bullshit was the big news. I wonder why. I wonder if there's a connection with that.
So, Juliet, is there anything that we didn't cover you think we should talk about before we say goodbye?
Well, you've got the links to the documents, and anybody can go there and look through these and give it a good look because there's explains a lot of what's happening in the country right now. And also pay attention. If you don't remember your childhood or you think you may have been programmed, which very likely you were, you've got a suicide program in you and you might not even know it's there. So you need to be careful.
Why does America have so many mass shooters in blah, 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 blah? Because they made people like that.
Yeah,
that's why. It's not a normal thing. You're supposed to have a fear of committing suicide just naturally, nothing with religion or anything. That's a natural instinct. They do everything to kill your natural instincts, to make you what they want you to be.
And they take your souls, and that's something we didn't get into. And they don't talk about it in the documents, but that's a big part of the programming is they want you to give up your soul.
That's what a frat is. That's why you get hazed when you join a frat, such as the Skull and Bones. Or there any of the other ones. Why do we have those? Has anybody asked that? The weird frats that rich kids go into? Because they're chosen ones, it's called.
The chosen ones, yeah.
What a great honor. And though they go through the stuff that you thought only happened in the movie Precious, it turns out the tippy top and bottom of society go through the same shit. Isn't that amazing?
Okay.
As above, so below, as they say.
So I will alert my editors to put a link to this document right here that I've been reading from. National Security Archive, CIA Behavior Control Experiments, this new scholarly collection. I will put a link in the show notes or the description, right? Yeah, that's it. Not show notes. But the description of this video, so you can go and link and you can read all this stuff, and it is mind blowing. Honest, I still am kind of overwhelmed trying to wrap my brain around it, for lack of a better term. But
you can't think they would do something so evil. But what's her name? Madeleine Albright. We always show the clip. Madeleine Albright, Rosicrucian, by the way, had a little rose pin because she was a programmed asset. Remember the interview? Was it worth it to starve 500,000 Iraqi kids? And she goes, I think it was.
She said yes.
So if you would starve 500,000 kids, you think you wouldn't drink a baby in the woods? Of course you would. When you hear a cartel, the horrible things they do, and you hear about they do magic rituals to hide their smuggling. You hear about it all the time on Vice and all the other CIA news things. Or when you hear about Liberia and General butt naked eating baby hearts in front of the parents. You don't blink, you believe that because Africans did it and Mexicans. You think your white leaders don't do all that shit? You think Hillary wouldn't do that if Mexico would do it?
Oh, they do it.
So again, this is just mind-blowing. And I was first made aware of it because of Colonel McGregor made a tweet with a video from you talking about this, which got demonetized by YouTube because YouTube's owned by Google, which is a CIA project. Right.
Emma got kicked off. Emma, that Julie did her show, got kicked off of YouTube. She lost her channel.
No kidding.
And I have been permanently banned from Wikipedia.
I wish they would. I would love to be banned from Wikipedia.
That proves your story true. Just that alone.
They sent a delegation out to tell me how bad I was for trying to end child prostitution. And that was the whole argument.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad you came on, Juliet.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
Wikipedia is an intelligence operation, 100%. And,
100%.
I would love to get them to erase my Wikipedia page because it's all slander from the establishment and the deep state. That's all it is. Someone like me, I can't believe that I could be any much of a threat where they would want to put Pegasus on my phone and my computer and my iCloud account. They got it all.
You're a free thinker.
So
well, these maniacs believe in magic and they believe you speaking. So the English that we speak was invented by Rosicrucians. That's why it's called spelling, because it's a spell. And that's why they treat comedians as if they have guns. That's why.
True. It's true. It's a special gift, projecting yourself into another person.
Wow.
It's got to be controlled.
Well, it's amazing. Well, amazing. Isn't it amazing, Kurt, that most of the comedians that I know were controlled during COVID for sure. That 100% controlled. They were controlled during the Russiagate. They were controlled during the Ukraine war. They were controlled during COVID, and they were controlled during the LA fires.
We're in the mass rollout phase of, I call it MK retard, but don't call it that. That's not cool. I say that. But that's what I call it. The whole public doesn't remember shit. Ever since I worked on your show, Jimmy, nobody remember. I remember all these stories because they're horrific. I'm traumatized by working here. Everyone forgets in 2 weeks every single thing.
Yes.
Is that normal to you? It's not.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Juliet Engel, I appreciate you coming on. We're way over time. Thank you for sharing that document. I'll share it with my audience, and good luck to you. So now you're working on stopping child trafficking, right? That's your main job?
Finding no will in the American people to help. So that's another story.
Okay. Well, we'll have you back on. We'll talk about that. How about that?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very. Is there a website you want to send people to or anything, or just this website?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.julietengel.com, just my name.com, and you'll find my books and some of my history there, and you can take a look at my books about my life and what I did. And I worked for 20 years in Russia, so there's a lot there.
Okay, fantastic. We will also put a link along with this document to your website. Thanks again. It's been mind blowing for sure. Okay, over to Steph.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. That was a great interview. Much appreciated. All right, thank you, Juliet. See you in the future.
Bye, Juliet. Thank you.
Only Israeli Apaches are that precise, Obi-Wan Savage says. You're both excellent in Glasgow. I hope you've had a great time, and thank you for making the trip over so I could see a show after years of watching Monroe. I'm glad you got to enjoy it. It was tons of fun. That was the night that I met Neil Oliver as well. What a fun night. That show was the first show for our tour in Europe, and it was quite memorable, for sure.
Yeah. The crowds in Glasgow were out of their mind.
Oh my God, what a night! This is not over for Iran. It's just another ruse by Trump. It's only the end of the beginning, as they say. Nona Mionili. What does Kurt think of Gary Wayne?
I just watched a new interview with him, and
Who is he?
He's like a Bible nerd, the way someone might be a comic book nerd, but the guy does. So his bias is he's a Christian guy, but his research is very good. And he laid out the entire Because I was trying to figure out what's the cult, like the Scientology of these super elite people.
Yes.
They must have their own Scientology. I know it's some bullshit with Atlantis, but what is it? Well, Gary Wayne figured it out, and he figured out the hierarchy and how it works. And the guy does real research, and he's upfront that he's Christian. So the last interview I saw, I can't remember what YouTube channel it was, but it's new. He really lays it out really well, and it explains a lot of things if you look into this stuff.
Well, you know, one of the things I was, when I was listening to the interview with Juliet today, she talked about how Senator Alan Cranston was one of the people that took children down to Mexico.
Yeah.
And what's really strange about, okay, so my great-grandfather, Anthony Cranston immigrated from Mexico, and supposedly there were 3 sons that left Scotland. And one son went to New York, one son went to Mexico, one son went to California.
Okay.
And so my great-grandfather, he's the child of one of the sons, spitting image of Alan Cranston. Looked exactly like Alan Cranston. And what was weird is my great-grandfather didn't speak any English at all. He looked just like him. And it was just so disturbing that she was saying that Alan Cranston brought children down to Mexico.
Well, you know what Robert Byrd did? Remember Senator Robert Byrd,
Yes.
the Klansman, who Obama spoke at his funeral and Hillary and Bill were there?
Oh, yeah.
Remember
They all
that
had nice things to say about him.
Yeah, and wow, you should hear what that guy was up to. He was in charge of funding NASA because, you know, exploring the inside of the mind. That's what NASA did in the basement. They explored inner space. Because, as you know, the first head of NASA, Kurt Debus, D-E-B-U-S. It looks like D-Bus, but it's Debus. And he's got one of them Nazi dueling scars down the side of his face. You know, okay, that's the first head of NASA. With Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun said, I need to have this guy here at NASA. So a Nazi was the first guy in charge of NASA. Does anybody know that? And they did Nazi stuff in the basement to people. And we didn't even scratch the surface. It's like, I don't even know how to, it sounds nuts, but that's the goal. Because when they would take these kids and do stuff, they dress up like people and make it a very surreal, dreamlike experience. You know? And who's going to believe you? You see how it works? All this stuff is theatrics. But if you do enough of it, then that's a high magic ritual and you control. So how do we go to war on the same shitty premise every time? The same way, put out the same moves and music every time. That's the same thing. It doesn't change.
You know, there were 2 things during the interview that stood out. You know, mentioning Britney Spears. That, you know, is she a part of mind control or, you know, or is she just breaking down because of the stress of her career and the manipulation?
All Disney kids, for some reason. Why do all the Disney kids end up like this?
Well, there is one that seems like okay, and that is, oh shit, what's his name? Who? I don't think Justin Timberlake. No, it was he, the guy that, that Jimmy talks about in his act with, Ryan Gosling. So Ryan Gosling, he was a Disney kid.
Gosling, yeah, I know. And he's just he didn't break down his functioning. The guy's from Canada, of course. He's in a movie called Netflix called The Gray Man. The Gray Man has elements of this in it. It's really amazing. Gary DeVore, the Hollywood screenwriter, look him up. He was found, his car just suddenly went out of control and veered off an overpass, and he was found with no hands.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we were talking about that.
That's right, because he was ratting out Panama. Remember what they did in Panama? So Noriega apparently double-crossed the cartel, meaning George Bush and Clinton, the head of the Mena, Arkansas cartel. And so that's why he was removed. But read Kathy O'Brien's book. I sent it to everybody. Oh, Lee Greenwood. I'm proud to be an American. I tweeted about him. I'll send you a text of the passage from her book if you want to hear it. It's all about Mount Shasta. You know what they do at Mount Shasta? It's real wild.
What?
It's real wild. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. It sounds beyond belief, but
I know.
Here's the clip. But it's a place where people have lost time and they think there's UFOs and Lemurians and whatever bullshit. Nah, there's something real bad that they do in there, and they did it for a while. All this stuff, my worst nightmare joke came true, that the secret is not UFO stuff, but in fact Harry Potter nonsense. I don't know why, but it is. And Disney, for the record, was a Rosicrucian. That's what that Club 33 is at Disneyland.
Well, yeah, that's the point about Disney. Of course, wherever you attract children, wherever children are going to be people that want to hurt children.
Yeah,
and
magic.
so you have this whole wasn't Walt Disney supposedly a Nazi? We have all.
No, he was not. He was a Rosicrucian.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of stuff. No, he wasn't a Nazi. He was a Rosicrucian. Okay. The Nazis are a gain-of-function virus that got out of hand, basically, is how I look at them. Because, as you know, Prescott Bush, the dad of George H.W.,
right.
He was the guy from the famous business plot that tried to overthrow FDR to install fascism. Remember that?
Yeah.
War is a Racket by...
oh, yeah.
Okay. The guy who was behind that was Prescott Bush. That's the traitor that tried to overthrow the president, the father of George H.W. from the CIA and later president. And his son. How does that work? That a traitor like that, 2 generations of his kid of his become president? You don't think that's weird?
And that film that you mentioned, Bonet did. What's the name of that film?
Blink Twice. That's got a lot of details.
I saw it because we were traveling on a plane, and that now that you highlight that, of course, this just nefarious mind control.
Well, what's the ending? The ending's the worst because it says we're not going to reveal it. A black woman's going to be in charge of the mind control now. That's the message.
Okay.
All right, back to Jimmy.
Oh, really?
What happened?
Okay, ready? So I start off with this story? Hey, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm getting older. Yes. And I'm even starting to lose my hair, which you probably can't tell because I'm wearing pants. But the point is, we have a new thing to help you aging. It's introducing Qualia Senolytic, the first of its kind formula designed to help your body naturally eliminate senescent cells. This is a big deal. They've been working on this forever. Senolytics are a science field revolutionizing human aging. A big culprit behind that middle-aged feeling can be senescent cells, also known as zombie cells that linger in your body after their useful function, wasting your energy and resources. The accumulation of zombie cells can lead to less energy, slower workout recovery, joint discomfort, and basically just feeling old. Well, here's how it works. You take it just 2 days a month, helping your body naturally eliminate zombie cells to age better at the cellular level. You experience the science of feeling younger. So if you want to experience the science of feeling younger, go to quallife.com/Dore for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Dore for an additional 15% up. That's QUALIFE.com/Dore for an extra 15% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. By the way, I'm going to do that. Remember we got that stuff, right? Didn't you want to do it, even though you're not middle-aged?
Oh, you're talking to Misha. I'm looking at the camera and think you're talking to me. I'm like, I'm well.
I'm young.
Jimmy, I'm old enough to fight in Ukraine.
Here it is. So, yeah, I'm going to do this. I saw Glenn Greenwald talking about it. Yeah. He was even more enthusiastic than I was. No kidding. So that's what... that is how that works. Like, oh, I trust Glenn Greenwald. That is how it works. So I was like, oh, no, I'll try this. I'm going to try this thing because of Glenn Greenwald. All right, be honest. Have you noticed yourself moving slower, avoiding stairs, feeling stiff in the morning? Not that kind of stiff. If so, pay attention. The truth is mobility doesn't just vanish overnight. It's a slow decline. And before you know it, you're the guy making weird noises every time you get off the couch. But by the time you pay those grunts enough attention, it can feel too late, but it doesn't have to be. That's where Juvent comes in. This isn't some gimmick or magic pill. It's a clinically proven device that uses safe, low-impact micro vibrations to strengthen your bones, improve your circulation, and keep your joints working the way they're supposed to. Notice I said micro vibrations. This is nothing like those other shake plates on the market, which, by the way, can be extremely dangerous. I stand by my Juvent for just 20... I stand on my Juvent for just 20 minutes a day, and it's made a noticeable difference in how I feel. It's like giving your body a tune-up before it completely breaks down. Athletes, doctors, even NASA is using this thing, and if it's good enough for astronauts, it's good enough for a comedian. With a 10-year limited warranty, financing options, and the ability to use FSA funds, it's never been easier. So don't wait until your knees sound like a bowl of Rice Krispies. Get a Juvent today. Go to juvent.com/Dore and start moving like you're supposed to. That's JUVENT.com/Dore. Code DORE for $300 off at checkout. Your joints will thank you. Trust me. Well, let's do it. Let's get them going.
And you have a couple more stories to do?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I have at least, yeah.
I just want to let the audience know.
Okay, the audience knows now.
That's right. Misha says stick around.
Hey, what if your coffee didn't just wake you up, but actually made you feel sharp, focused, and ready for the day? That's the difference with 1775's Pea Berry coffee. These beans are rare, less than 5% of all coffee grown. They're denser, naturally higher in caffeine, and packed with antioxidants. That means more mental clarity, better energy, and zero crash. Each bean grows so low, high in the Bolivian mountains, and it's hand-picked at peak ripeness. The result? A smoother, more concentrated flavor that kickstarts your metabolism without the acidity or jitters. How can they pull that off? You're still getting 1775's organic, small batch, small farm, single origin quality, just with the bean that goes above and beyond. So go to 1775coffee.com/Dore to save 15% off your order of 1775 coffee. It's coffee that actually earns its place in your morning. I got to start I haven't drinking.
Whoa.
Drinking.
Whoa, boy. Yeah. Okay.
Drinking. Okay. Come see us on tour. We'll be in Toronto, Red Bank, New Jersey, Northampton, Massachusetts, Concord, New Hampshire, Rutherford, New Jersey, Edmonton, Alberta, Calgary, New Westminster, that's Vancouver, and Appleton, Wisconsin. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Boom.
New Westminster. Look, can we just switch that to Vancouver? Because that's what it is. New Westminster? What the fuck? I mean, that's what that is.
Come on over here. Come on.
We're playing the Comedy House, or House of Comedy, right? There's one in Edmonton, eh? And I think there's one in Vancouver now, eh? Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's go to jimmydore.com and click on the... It's weird. I'm to that age and my friends are retiring, and it makes you just make, because I feel still like I'm 40 years old in my head. Concord, Rutherford, Edmonton, Calgary. Yeah, it's the House of Comedy. That's Vancouver. Yeah. House of Comedy, Vancouver. Let's see what comes up. Oh, it's not? You're shitting. What?
You want to do it again, doing Vancouver, Jim?
What the fuck? The ticket link is broken. You gotta be shitting me.
All right, come back to Steph.
Okay.
That is not over for Iran. It's just another ruse by Trump.
Yeah.
It's only the end of the beginning, as they say. And Kurt did respond to Blanco about Gary Wayne. Love the show. Kurt, I would love to see you at comedy at the Carlson in Rochester, New York. Thank you for that.
Sure. Tell them to book me.
Their whole
Turkey is occupying from Aleppo to their borders and stole Syrian-owned industries because they said Aleppo belongs to the Ottoman Empire and are allowing Syrians to being massacred by his Al-Qaeda boy, Gu-81. I read that one. Kerp is a national treasure, my real name. Ever since the inauguration, if I had $1 for every time I said, "Are you fucking kidding me?" I've had enough for one of Elon's shitty Teslas, spray painted swastika free of charge. My_war. The good thing about the Americans is that our government had to lie to us to keep us in war. The bad thing is it's easy to do. Daniel Ellsberg, rest in peace. If I ever go to the British Isles, my highest priority will be to shake hands with Claire Daly and Mick Wallace. Fret Pound. Turkey. Oh, I read that one. Just now, from the cradle, senior Iranian official has told CNN that Iran has not received any ceasefire proposal. I've read right now that Iranian official has said that they've received the ceasefire information. It's me. Hear me out. A live show where you talk about stuff from last year. Okay, Posmo, gotcha. You didn't watch the whole podcast, the whole show.
Okay, come to me.
Back to Jim.